students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. In this particular video, we are going to discuss about the NCERT Chapter 1 of Class 6th. So, if you look at this particular chapter, the chapter begins with a quote of Aryabhat that Aryabhat gave almost 500 at around 500 Common Era, and the quote is that the globe of Earth stands in space made up of water, earth, fire, and is spherical. That means talking about the shape of Earth. It is surrounded by all creatures, terrestrial as well as aquatic. Now, if you look at the chapter, the content of this particular chapter, we have to study about what is a map, how do we use the map in geography, and what are the main components of the map. Then after discussing it, we are going to talk about the coordinates that we use to locate a particular place on the earth, and at the same time we'll also study two important lines which are latitudes and longitudes, and how latitudes and longitude can be used to mark any location on the earth. Now, after that, once we understand about the concept of longitude, we are going to understand how to calculate the local time. If we know a standard time at suppose Greenwich meridian, I talk about Greenwich mean time. So if you know the time at GMT, you should be able to calculate what will the local time in India, what a local time in Bangladesh, Malaysia, and so on. Now further as we move in this particular chapter, there is a map of imaginary city that is given here, where all different type of buildings such as apartments, railway stations, hospitals, schools, and markets, etc. are given. And the most important is whenever you are drawing a map, you have to ensure that you give a direction. So that is what's shown here in the right upper hand corner. You have north marked here, and you have the west direction, east direction, and south directions. Once you mark the direction, for a person who is looking at the map, it becomes easier for him to understand which direction, which building, which kind of structures are. So you can easily say that the pond and river is located to the west of the city. The railway line is located in the westernmost part of the city. Similarly, the museum is located on what you can call as the easternmost part of the city. And that's what this particular map is trying to do, because as per geographers, map can be considered to be a treasure guide. That means treasure guide, it is able to show you where things are and how to get to them, and that's why we also use direction. Now the next is a map, and what are the main components of the map. Now we know that most of maps we study in atlas. Now atlas is simply a book or collection of map that shows you different things. Now as we can see that in the atlas, various different types of map can be given. First is what we call as physical map. In physical map, mainly natural features are given, natural features such as mountains, oceans, and river. Similarly, atlas can also contain political map. Political map shows details of a country or a state and mainly deals the political boundaries of the state. That means by looking at political map, you will be able to understand that where a particular city or state ends, where a different city or second city or state begins. An example is the map of India itself. If you look at the political map of India, we will be able to understand that what are the different states which are part of India, which are different union territories that are part of India, and also at the same time capitals of these regions are given as well. And by analyzing this map, you will be able to understand that what is the boundary, what is the area, which state is bigger, which state is smaller. So that is the political map. And third type of map is what we call as thematic map. Thematic map gives us a specific kind of information, such as distance. Overall, you talk about thematic map, also we have three different components, just distance, directions, and symbol. So already we have seen that in the last diagram. Now let us try to understand about the arrows that is given on the right hand corner of the last map that we have shown. So if you look at these arrows are pointing toward what we call as the cardinal directions. The four directions which are east, south, west, and north are called as cardinal directions. So example, here you talk about this is the north, this is east, this is west, and this is south. These are called as cardinal direction and also called as cardinal points. Other than these, in between north and east, for example, you have northeast. Similarly, between east and south, you have southeast. Between west and south, you have southwest, and between north and west, you have northwest. So these directions are also called as intermediate directions. And most of the maps that you see in the atlas, whether it is political map or even sometime physical map, they generally have an arrow marked with letter N which points to the direction north as such. So by looking at the simple arrow N, you'll be able to understand that if this is N, that means this must be east, this must be west, this must be south, and between them lies all these intermediate directions such as northeast, southeast, southwest, and northwest. Now, apart from that, also on the map, we see symbols being used. Symbols are also very important components of the map. For example, the last map that we have seen, there has been given a small drawings of actual buildings and few other elements, but there would not be enough space on the map of large city or country to draw them all. That's why on a larger map, instead of drawing shape of buildings or drawing the shape of mountains or showing rivers, we use symbol. So example, railway station, if any building is there, it has a different symbol. School will be represented by a different symbol. Post office would be represented by a different symbol. And that's how, by understanding and by looking at the symbol, you will realize that which kind of structure the map is talking about. Also, to make maps more easily understood by variety of user, map makers use specific symbol. Different countries use different set of symbol. In India, the main organization which is responsible for creation of map is the Survey of India. Now, obviously, Survey of India is a government body and it uses a fixed set of symbols for the maps of India. So, let us try to look at these symbols used by the Survey of India. So, first symbol, as you can see, is representing the railway lines. These are different type of railway lines based on what is their width. So, we have two types of main railway lines that we are using. One is broad gauge, other is meter gauge. So, this we can say it is a broad gauge. Then we have the meter gauge symbol. And if along the railway line, if you have a railway station that is located, so this we can see is represented by a symbol. Railway line along with a kind of rectangle with a red dot in the central point. Similarly, we also have roadways. Roadways again can be of two types, metals and unmetal. In the urban areas, generally you have metal roads, while many rural areas have unmetal road, also called as kacha road. Metal road is simply represented by the symbol two parallel lines, while the unmetal road is represented by the dotted line. Now, if you talk about the boundaries is also of different type. For example, if you talk about the map of India itself, so within India, we have different states. For example, here you have Rajasthan. This side further south, you will have Gujarat, and then further this side, you have international boundary, that is Pakistan. So when you talk about the international boundary, this is the general symbol used. That means you have solid line, then followed by a circle, dot we can say, again a solid line followed by circle. In the case of state line, we are using the similar symbol, but the length of these lines become much more smaller, and as far as the district boundaries are concerned, these are simply represented by a dotted line. Apart from that, river, well, tank, canal, all of these are having their unique symbol, as you can see from this particular diagram. Now, this one, last one, if you look at, this is the standard symbol used by Survey of India to represent a bridge at particular area. Then we have many religious places. These are temples, church, mosques, chhatris. So all of them, as you can see, have their unique symbol as well. Then post office, as you can see, rather than using some symbol, we are using simply the letters to represent different types of government buildings like post office. Then we have post and telegraph office, and police station simply is marked by PS. Then apart from that, we have settlements and graveyards. They have their own symbol. Trees and grasses, they have their own symbol. So these are some of the selection of symbols commonly used in the maps by Survey of India. Now let us try to understand about the mapping of Earth. Now the mapping of Earth is little more difficult because our planet, as we know, is not a flat surface. So it has nearly the shape of a sphere. We say nearly because you know that if you talk about the globe, it is something like this. That means the equatorial area is kind of bulging out, and at the polar region, Earth is kind of compact. So it has its own shape that we also called as geoid shape, and this is represented in the form of a globe. So globe can be considered to be somewhere similar to a sphere on which we are trying to draw a map. This map may be map of Earth also, the moon, planet Mars, stars and constellations in the sky. The physical objects like the one shown in drawing on the next page is sphere that is generally made up of metal, plastic or cardboards, as you can see. Now, before understanding the latitudes and longitude, we have to understand the coordinates as well. So, coordinates are very important because if you are in a particular city and you want someone to come and meet you, you have to give them direction. How do you give them direction? You have to tell them that where exactly you are currently located in the city as such. So, you can use such kind of notations like you are at the seventh shop in the fifth row from the entrance of a particular market as such. So that's where the coordinates come into picture. Now, on the earth, the system that we use, the system of coordinates that we use, can be classified either as latitudes or longitudes. So, let us first try to understand about the latitudes. Now, when you talk about the globe, it is easy to identify the North Pole and South Pole. And in rotating the globes, the fixed points at top and bottom are the two poles. Halfway between them lies the equator. Now, imagine that you stand on the equator and travels toward one of the poles. Right? For example, we can take example of this particular picture. We can take example. So this is our North Pole, and this line is what you're calling at equator line. So when you're moving from equator toward North Pole, you can see various different circles are drawn at parallel distance from each other. These circles themselves, these lines themselves, is what we are calling as longitude. So when you start from equator, it is the largest circle, and this is what we represent by 0 degree, and then the pole is represented by 90 degree. So between equator to poles, you can draw various circles between 0 degree to 90 degree as such. Apart from that, also we try to understand about latitudes in more detail. So latitudes are referred as parallel of latitude as well. Why parallel? Because we just have seen in the this particular picture that all the latitudinal lines are drawn parallel to each other between equator and poles. And again, it is easy to note on the globe that largest circle is always the equator. Well, the circle, as you are going toward poles, what is happening? Look at the picture here. So when you are going or moving toward poles, what happens? The size of circle, if you talk about the diameter of circle, it keeps on getting smaller and smaller. So that's why equator also is many times referred by a name of great circle. Latitudes are expressed in degrees by convention. Equator, as we have discussed, 0 degree, poles are 90 degree. Now we have two poles, North Pole and South Pole. So 90 degree north and 90 degree south is a term that we use. Now, interestingly, latitude has an important role on affecting climate as well. For example, in the equatorial areas, if you talk about equatorial region, climate is generally hot as such. Equatorial area, if you talk about, we have hot climate. The reason is because sunlight is falling more directly in this region. And as you move toward poles, what happens? The sun rays become more slanted or more inclined in nature, and that's why the amount of sunlight available toward the polar areas becomes lesser and lesser. And as the sunlight determines the we can talk about the temperature of the earth's surface. That's why as we go toward the polar areas, temperature keeps on reducing. Now the highest temperature you will find around equator, and this zone where you have the maximum temperature on the earth is what we call as torrid zone. As you go toward polar areas, temperature becomes slightly low, and that region of moderate temperature is what we call as temperate zone. And when you reach the polar area, there sunlight is very weak. That means insolation, we can say incoming solar radiation is very weak, and that's why this area most of time remains permanently frozen. That means we have permanent ice sheets or ice cover, and this zone is what we call as frigid zone. So overall, we have torrid zone, temperate zone, and frigid zone on the earth as far as the latitudes are concerned. The second important line is longitude. Now, in case of longitude, if you have to imagine, again, let us suppose we draw the earth and we are moving from North Pole to South Pole. So this side we have South Pole, this side we have North Pole. So while you're moving from North Pole to South Pole, you are basically traveling along a longitude. Similarly, you can go from North Pole to South Pole in various directions. Imagine that you started journey from here, but rather than moving a straight line, you have moved like this and reached here. Or started from South Pole, rather moving a straight line, you moved here. Or you take a much more longer journey and move like this or move like this. So each of these lines that connects North Pole and South Pole is considered as longitude. These lines are also called as meridians of longitude, and they are kind of half circle running from one pole to other pole. Why half circle? Because earth is spherical. So this part of circle is what we are calling as longitude, and then other half of circle will be on the other side of the globe. Now we know that when you talk about the longitude, as we have seen, 0 degree latitude is called as equator. Similarly, 0 degree longitude, when we mark it, it is referred by its own name, and that is called as prime meridian. Prime meridian right? 0 degree longitude is what we can call as prime meridian. Prime meridian is also referred by other name. It is called as Greenwich meridian. Greenwich meridian is not something it is chosen because of its geographical importance. Simply in the early days, if we talk about, UK used to be the seat of all scientific and technological development. That's why in year 1884, some nations decided that the meridian that passes through Greenwich, that is passing through the London, which was the capital of UK, would be considered as international standard for the prime meridian and is marked as 0 degree longitude as such. So, in simple, what we can say that latitude is a measure of distance from equator. If you travel toward one of the poles, longitude is a measure of distance from the prime meridian if you travel along the equator as such. Now, if you try to think about it, suppose this is your 0 degree, that is prime meridian. You can move either to the west or to the east. That means when you are drawing different longitudes, these can be referred as either western longitude or can be referred as eastern longitude. And you can go all the way from 0 degree back to here, that will be 180 degree. So you can move from 0 degree to 180 degree while moving from west, or you can move from 0 degree to 180 degree while moving from east as such. That's why you have all the longitude between 0 to 180 west or 0 to 180 east, and to represent them we simply use the term west and east. And one example we can take is of New York. New York is located at a longitude of 74 degree west. Now what does it tells you? It tells you that if you start your journey from prime meridian, which is 0 degree, you have to move to the west first of all. Now, how much will you move to the west? The answer is 74 degree further to the west, and that's when you will be able to reach New York. Similarly, Delhi is located in the eastern direction. That means about 77 degree east as such. And Tokyo is simply located at 140 degree east of longitude. So, interesting thing that we have to keep in mind, which we can understand by looking at the structure of globe itself. If I draw 0 degree line, that is a single line. There cannot be other 0 degree line. There is a single prime meridian, and 180 degree will be directly opposite to it on the other side of Earth. So it is obvious that 180 degree line will also be a single line. So two longitude, 0 degree, 180 longitude cannot be west or east. It will be simple longitude, while all other longitude can be simply west and east as such. Now, since we have understood the concept of both latitude and longitude, together they consist of what you can call as the coordinate system of the Earth. And if you know latitude and longitude of a particular place, you will be able to locate them easily everywhere on the Earth as such. Now, let us try to look at the map to have a better understanding. This is the map of the Earth. This yellow line that you see is the 0 degree longitude, which we have referred also as Greenwich meridian. Now, all the places on the earth that lies between 0 degree and 180 degree is called as western hemisphere, and the part of earth that lies between 0 degree and moving toward east toward 180 degree is called as the eastern hemisphere. Similarly, if you look at the latitude, 0 degree latitude, which we have referred as equator, all the places on the earth that is to the north of 0 degree, north of equator, comes under the northern hemisphere, and all the places between 0 degree equator and 90 degree, that is south pole, can be referred as the southern hemisphere. That means any country on the earth can be part of each of these spheres, either western or eastern or northern and southern. That means, we take example of India. India is part of northern hemisphere as well as eastern hemisphere. Now, a very interesting point that we have to observe here is that we have discussed the reason why Greenwich meridian is chosen as the first prime meridian is because of the importance of London during early 19th 18th century as such. Now, interestingly, many centuries ago, India used to have a prime meridian of its own. That prime meridian was called as Madhya Rekha. Madhya Rekha because it was central line, middle line passing through the city of Ujjaini. Ujjaini was the name of city. Today it is called as Ujjain. Ujjain today is located in the state of Madhya Pradesh. And in the early times, roughly we can say 15 years ago, it used to be a very important center for astronomy in India. And you would have heard about astronomers, very famous astronomer for India such as Varah Mehir. So he used to live and work in the state of Madhya Pradesh, the Ujjaini. So Indian astronomers, what we can understand from here, it is the concept of latitudes and longitudes are not a new development. Indian astronomers had awareness about this concept many years ago, and they did not needed any zero or prime meridian passing through London. Ujjaini meridian itself became a reference for calculation in all Indian astronomical text. So let us try to look also where this meridian used to pass through in the past. So if you take a look at the map of India, we can now see This is the older meridian. If you measure based on the current GMT, Greenwich meridian, it is about 70.5 degree, 75.8 degree to the east, and this you can see directly located on the city is Ujjaini or Ujjain. So we have drawn a standard line, and various other cities of the ancient past such as Rohtaka, called as Rohtak today, Delhi, Kurukshetra, Malavnagar, then you have Mahishmati or Maheshwar, then further west you have Mumbai, Bangalore, Chennai, and then this part if you look called as Kumari or Kanyakumari. So Ujjaini prime meridian was used in the ancient Indian astronomy. All the cities that are marked with circle here are mentioned in astronomical text as being on the meridian, and that we can see is how accurate it is, because all the cities are very, very close. Ancient cities are close to India meridian. Now the current map of India, if you talk about the blank map of India, it looks something like this. And if you look at the extent, so currently if you talk about in the latitude and longitude, so India start from somewhere about 8 degree of longitude, and then in the northernmost part it goes up to 37 degree. Similarly, it starts somewhere about 67 degree of longitude, and then further longitude and further extends up to 87 degree, 97 degree. So that is the overall extent which is given in this particular map passage. Now, since we have understood the concept of longitude, we also have to understand about the time zones. So for example, the concept of time zone to understand can be understood simply from the fact that the time changes because Earth is rotating, right? If you try to think why time changes, why we have morning, afternoon, evening and night, it is because simply sun is moving. Now we know that sun does not move. What moves is the Earth. So as the Earth rotates, we see a apparent shift in the position of sun. So we know that Earth completes about 360 degree of rotation in 24 hours. That means we can say that for every degree of rotation, Earth will take roughly 4 minutes. And we have divided entire Earth into 180 longitude as such. That means simply we can say for every degree change of longitude, time should change by 4 minutes. That means time will change by 4 minutes. Now we have classified longitude either as eastern longitude and western longitude, and we know that sun is moving from east to west. That means eastern side of the earth will always be ahead, while western side will be kind of lagging behind. That means if you are given time at suppose 0 degree GMT, and you want to know what will time at 1 degree east, and you want to also know what will time at 1 degree west, we know that difference will be of 4 minutes only. But if you are moving to the east, you have to add 4 minutes to the Greenwich Mean Time. And if you are moving to the west, you have to subtract 4 minutes from the Greenwich Mean Time. Let us try to understand this by taking a simple example. So let us suppose I say that as of now at GMT, time is 12 noon. Now what will time at 5 degree east of longitude, and what will time at 5 degree west of longitude? So we know that for 1 degree change of longitude, time varies by 4 minutes. That means for 5 degree, because if you talk about GMT, what is longitude of GMT? 0 degree. So the difference here is of 5 degrees. So for 5 degree difference in longitude, time difference will be of about 20 minutes. Now we know that if you are moving to the east, we have to add, and if you are moving to the west, we have to subtract. So the correct answer in this case will be that at 5 degree east, time would be 12:20 p.m. while at 5 degree west, time would be 11:40 a.m. So this is how we use the concept of longitude to calculate local time at any given place as such. Now let us try to apply the same concept in India. So we know India extends all the way from Gujarat in the west and then further to the Assam, Arunachal Pradesh in the east. So if one friend is sitting in Porbandar, Porbandar is in Gujarat, another friend is sitting in Tinsukia, Tinsukia in Assam, what we observe that if they are speaking on a phone in late afternoon, the friend who is sitting in Tinsukia in the Assam remarks that sun already has set. He cannot see sun above the horizon. While for person who is sitting in Porbandar, Gujarat, he is surprised and says that no, here still you have full daylight. What is the reason behind this? Now again, if you try to understand the Porbandar and Tinsukia, the longitudinal difference comes out to be about 30 degree. Again, if you apply the same concept, for 1 degree difference in longitude, time changes by 4 minutes. That means for 30 degree difference in longitude, time will change by 30 into 4, that is 120 minutes. And 120 minutes is equal to how many hours? It is equivalent to almost 2 hours. That means simply we can say the time difference, the local time difference between Assam and Gujarat is of 2 hours. And suppose that if sun is setting at 6 p.m., so it's already 6 in Assam. That's why friend is seeing sun has set. But in Gujarat locally, it is 4 p.m. So still 2 hours are left before sun can set in Gujarat. That's why this difference comes. Now, interestingly, in case of India, if you look at the difference in time between 0 degree, that is Greenwich Mean Time, and IST, that is the Indian Standard Time, it comes out to be about 5 hours 30 minutes of difference. And now no need to tell, because India is situated to the east of longitude, this difference of 5 hours 30 minutes will have to add as such. That's why now if we take other example, we can say that if question is like if time is 12 noon, again at GMT, again we know that GMT passes through London. So what I'm trying to say is that if it is 12 noon in London, what should be time in India? So your answer should be 5:30 p.m. So that would be the time here. Now we can take a look at the map where longitudes are expressed, countries are also given, and we can see from here that in case of India, we have only one standard time. That means nowhere, no matter wherever you are in India, time will always be same for you. Whether you are in Assam or whether you are in Gujarat, we will have 5 p.m. Locally it will vary, but we have standardized as a single time. But many countries in the world are there, they are so longitudinally extended that they cannot have one standard time. An example is countries such as Russia, Canada, US. They have such a large longitudinal extent that they have multiple time zones. Example is US, which has 6 time zone. Russia has 11 time zone. That means what it means is that if you are starting your journey from the west of Russia and you would want to go to the east part of Russia, you will have to change your watch, basically change time in your watch by 11 different times or 10 different times you have to adjust because you have 11 different time zones and such. Now, finally, while the prime meridians are fixed at Greenwich, which we have referred as 0 degree longitude, the opposite line, as we have called to be 180 degree longitude, this is also roughly coinciding with a line that we call as international date line. Now, as you can see on the map, on the upper map you talk about here, if you are moving from Greenwich Mean Time, you are moving to the west, so time you have to keep on subtracting, so it is minus 12. And you keep moving to the east, again you will reach at the same place, but here you will have plus 12. So imagine just on this side of line you are 12 hours ahead, and on the other side of line you are 12 hours behind. That means actual time difference here is of 24 hours. What it basically means that if this is international date line and you are crossing the international date line, you have to adjust your watch by 24 hours. That means there will be a loss or gain of one full day. Why one full day? Because one day we know is made up of 24 hours. That means if you are crossing the international date line from east to west, you will have to add one full day, right? That means if you are in Saturday here, once you cross the line, you will enter into Sunday. And reverse is true. That means if you are crossing the international date line from west to east, you have to subtract 24 hours or you have to subtract the full day, subtract 24 hours, subtract full day. That means if it was Monday to the west of international date line, it will become Sunday to the east of international date line. And this happens because of the shape of the earth, which is more of spherical in nature. So that's what we have discussed. We have to add or subtract. Now, before we move on, we have to understand that maps are very useful tool to represent an area of Earth. We have seen that also in example. It does not matter whether you are representing a small area such as city or large areas such as country or even the entire world. The main components of map are distance. You need to understand how far different places are from each other, direction, and the symbol. Every place on the Earth has a particular location which can be classified on the basis of grid of two lines we have discussed, latitudes and longitudes. They are both imaginary line running from east to west parallel to equator and north to south from pole to pole as such. Longitude also marks the time and defines the time zone. And the most important, international date line is located approximately at 180-degree longitude opposite the prime meridian. And the most important fact we have to keep in mind here is that crossing the international date line changes the date by one day, how we already have explained. Now here a definition is given that you should know. There is a term mentioned here called as estuary. So estuary is a term that we use to refer to a place where river meets the sea. So when river is flowing over the continental landmass, and here you have the sea or ocean. So the place where river meets the sea is called as estuary. In India, we can take example is Narmada river. So Narmada river flows toward Arabian Sea and makes up the estuary.